Where do you think right now the actual main product is for Magic Block, and where do you think the next 6 months are with the evolution of gaming and where gaming is going? And I say this maybe because there is AAA gaming, there's indie gaming, there's mobile gaming, there's all of it, right?
Mhm.
And different things. We're seeing AAA games in Web3 break into PlayStation, Xbox, Steam. We're seeing mobile games now break into the Play Store, Apple Store, and the less friction that it is. Crypto is getting more adopted. It is getting more adopted, regulation and everything. Where do you think Magic Block right now, product wise, in the next 6 months, and even now, are really kind of like what's everybody should be tuning into and figuring out, hey, how do we use Magic Block today?
Yeah, we're definitely skewed toward mobile. I mean, the great thing about on-chain games is that they are client agnostic, meaning they could be then deploy on mobile, on web, on consoles potentially. So there's not really like an impediment in terms of once you keep your state on chain, then the game can be everywhere, and you will just interact with the blockchain as the backend essentially, which is what MagicBlock provides. But we definitely have a focus on mobile game. I think initiative like Seeker, and the fact that you mentioned that nowadays it's much easier to it's not easy, but it's easier to publish games on the App Store, iOS and Play Store, is definitely where we see the vast majority of the growth in terms of additional user base coming in the next 6 months, 1 year, and to be honest, also medium to longer term. Unity, it's powering 50% of the current mobile games, and so the choice of Unity was also to already sort of allowing developers to build for that. But then again, we don't really have a tech stack that is opinionated in one way or another. If someone wants to build a Unity based game and deploy it on WebGL on web, it's totally feasible. We're pretty excited about Seeker. We are inviting all our developers to build for Seeker and to meet their users there if they're building for Solana native users. If they are building for a more traditional audience, of course, other type of platform might be better, Steam and whatnot. But then you're really competing with way more games, and you're really competing with traditional studios, because at that point, again, it's these user segmentation problem that I was referring to before. You have to pick carefully what is the user base that you're going after. And so with us, with the tool, like to sum up, we are pretty the tools are agnostic. If you build an on-chain game, you can then deploy that game wherever you want. But we're kind of skewed, at least in our conviction, within towards Seeker, towards mobile first experiences.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's really kind of a testament to what you're saying, because I was looking at what you guys have been doing this past month, and I was reading your July report, and really seeing like, hey, the Solana turbine, the Magic router, the acquisition, the powering of Exo app. I think like there's a lot of things, the in real life things that you guys are doing. It really kind of now starts putting this narrative of, hey, like you guys are really the real deal here when it comes down to helping video game developers, especially when we look at mobile, and when we look at what the work has been done and why people are working more. Now it's all starting to come really to color for me. Where is now, like, you guys were making an event in Lagos, the
It
game
was the
jam.
community. It was the
Yeah,
community of MagicBlock that organized that. So
yeah, that's awesome, right? Like,
yeah, it's pretty cool.
where do you think a lot of this is now really going for, right? Because when we look at campaigns, when we look at awareness, when we look at marketing, guerrilla marketing, you look at all these things, like, where do you, like, here you're mentioning Seeker Phone with a huge focus on Seeker Phone, but we know that as well, like, in order to reach the discoverability that we were just mentioning, right, it will have to be also the App Store, the Google Play Store, things
Mhm.
where games are truly discoverable in order to turn on revenue, which is one thing that you mentioned before, is like revenue is stagnant. How do you make revenue, right? How do you go to where players are, and how do you make it frictionless is what you guys are essentially doing as well. But where do you think right now, again, is these these partnerships, these announcements that you guys have made, these are pretty massive to me as well. But what would be the next, let's just say, checklist for what you guys Magic Block is offering here in today's day?
Yeah, so I have a bit of a controversial opinion on where studio, especially small studio. I'm talking specifically about indie devs as small studio because those are most of the users that we serve right now, and what they should be thinking in terms of distribution. They should definitely be on all the store possible to get maximum distribution. But I think realistically, it's way easier to get 10,000 users that spend $1,000 on your game and generate $1 million in revenue that way if you are on Solana or on Seeker than instead having 1 million users that spend $1 on your game each, right? Which is the typical monetization path for mobile games on the traditional mobile games is 2% of the players that are the so-called whales that spend in to purchase in-game assets. Most likely, that's the vast majority of the monetization. It's in-game purchases, and those players cover up for all the other players that are free riders. They effectively just play for free. They enjoy the game for some time, then whatever they go to the next one, and 2% of the players instead cover the cost. In crypto, there's way more power users. There's way more high spenders by virtue of the fact that people are already used to hold digital assets, and there's also a pretty big overlap between gamers and crypto users and crypto natives. And so I think it's a really powerful combination for most studio to be able to generate revenue that way by catering props into a smaller player base, but they have higher revenue and purchasing power. And so this is a bit of my controversial opinion, as opposed to say, okay, you should go for this. You should definitely shoot for the star. Don't get me wrong. Be in all the marketplace. Try to get to 1 billion users, but start small. Start from like the native distribution channel. iOS is of course way bigger than the App Store on Seeker, but there's also a million apps, right? Whereas on Seeker, how many games are gonna launch? Probably less than 50. And so it's very easy to get in front of your users, of new potential users, if you're competing with 50 other games, as opposed to competing with the big companies and 1 million up. So I guess it's a matter of stage, of course. Like you have to progressively get there. But if I were to build a game nowadays, I would focus on distribution for where the users are right now. Totally different if you're building a game that caters known crypto natives and caters towards traditional gamers, because at that point, sure, you need to think, where do I meet those users? And they are probably not on Seeker today.
It's funny you had me kind of really quickly Google is 150,000 over 150,000 Seeker phones are being shipped,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's
Yeah.
150,000 users, right? And you're mentioning less than 50 games possibly being on there, and the opportunity there. And it's funny you say that it's a controversial take, because I've actually been kind of on this like marketing controversial take as well, in the sense that I'm tired of Web3 games trying to go after Web2 users sometimes, when we haven't even gone after all the Web3 users, right?
Exactly.
Because I go to conferences, I go to events, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm in gaming. And they're like, wait, we have a gaming section? And I'm like, what do you mean? And it's like, yeah, these guys are like in the DeFi section where like there's millions of money being made. And here we are struggling right now in gaming, right? Like there's a very much dry drought that we're in. The hype hasn't really come back yet. It's starting to trend, but for me, it's always been like, why aren't we going after the people that are natively know what crypto is? We don't have to sell them on what crypto is. They already know, they're in this space. Most people are gamers. I mean, at what point, like, look, I think every phone now has pre-installed games and everything. And like everybody's a native gamer somehow and somewhat, or has played games in their life. And it's like, how come we're not targeting them? And this is a phenomenal point you make here. It's like, hey, the Seeker phone has the ability to help you advance what you are, discover where you want to be. And yeah, it's over 150,000 have been ordered. Probably less than 50 games, and yeah, this is the opportunity. And I think this is a great call to action here, is like, hey, reach out to Magic Block, find out what Magic Block could do for you. Get in touch with the partnership team or the BD team. Tell them what stage of life you are in.